Welcome to the Floor Academy podcast. I'm your host, Kyle Hedin, owner of Illustrious Hardwoods in Mesa, Arizona. It's getting to be that time of year where, you know what? You should be jealous of where I live because it's about to get really nice here. And I'm sorry for everybody that's in the snow. But that's not what we're here for. It's not to brag about, my living conditions here soon. I want to help you. Floor Academy wants to help you go from owning a job to owning an asset. Why are you running a business if you don't want to own an asset? I think that's just silly. We're here every week. We're in our Facebook group having conversations. Join in, get yourself moving forward to get to that next step. This week, I've got John Barker with me. He has an IT background. He's now doing IT consulting and business consulting. He also hosts the Business Samurai podcast. We'll let him get into that in just a minute. But first off, for over 65 years, Laticrete has been a leading manufacturer of products and systems covering tile and stone installation, masonry veneer installation, resinous and decorative floor finishes, concrete construction chemicals, and concrete restoration. They offer an array of low VOC and sustainable products. Their products contribute to LEED certification, exceed commercial and residential VOC building requirements, and are backed by the most comprehensive warranties in the industry. For more information on Laticrete and the products they offer, visit laticrete.com. John, welcome to the show. Who are you? What do you do? Why do you do it? Let's hear that little bit of the background, who you are, and all that fun stuff.
Sounds good, Kyle. Really appreciate what you're doing. I absolutely love the mission you're on to get people to start building assets and not seeing themselves as just practitioners in the field. Absolutely love it. So for me, I've been, as you mentioned, a little over 20 years in the IT and management space. I started in IT back so long. It was back when you had gigantic mainframes that took up an entire room. And to back them up, they came on big reels of tape. For people that are not familiar with them, it was literal physical tape that you had to deal with. And over the course, built myself up as full-on network engineering. I was at the very first fully online university that you could go sign up for that was there. I built out the network infrastructure, went into consulting, where I have been absolutely involved in all kinds of different, primarily service-based industries, but have seen a lot: lawyers, doctors, agriculture, dealing with some high net worth people that have, multi 9-figure trust funds. You got to kind of weed through the stuff with those, which can be a very unique experience if you've not been exposed to that before. And it's one of those things. When I started out, cybersecurity is not talked about like it is now. And we keep hearing about the stuff that's on the news. Mm-hmm. And the reason that I focus back on a lot of kind of the operational things, the way you talk about it, we've got all the tech tools, but the feeling is always kind of in the human element. The people are doing things they should not be doing because they're in a rush or not paying attention. And next thing you know, that asset that you spoke about that you're trying to build is at risk. And you need to start thinking about risk, that you don't want something, by you clicking an email accidentally or on purpose, shutting down that asset.
Yeah.
So that's what I want to see, the optimization as well as building in that a little bit of security mindset, because you worked long and hard to build your business.
Well, I think privacy is something that's missing these days. Like we think we have privacy, but even just myself I was born in 82. So just watching how we've evolved as technology has taken over, I feel we give away a little bit more each year. And, you used to be able to hide behind a phone number. People couldn't call you back. Star 69 came out, caller ID came out. And you have, there was cameras, but now there's cameras everywhere. Like as a contractor, I just assume I can be heard and seen in any home I walk into, because everyone can go buy a camera system now and just put it up anywhere. And, then you have every piece of software you open. Hey, agree to this. What are you even, does anybody read it? No, because here, I love this one. If you read the iTunes end user license agreement, it actually has a stipulation in there about you can't use their software for the creation of nuclear weapons and weapons of mass destruction. I'm just like, You know what? Yes, I agree to that. Right. And I've never read the whole thing. I just I heard it once and then I actually like scrolled through and found it. I was like, no
Mhm.
way. Like, this is insane. So the things we agree to and don't even know, like, we just keep giving privacy away. And then we put so much stuff out there. Like, there's all these, fun things to do on social media. And they're like, hey, what's your favorite animal? Or like, what was the name of your first pet? I'm like, you guys are dumb. Why are you answering that? Now I'd have one of your security questions, right? Oh, what high school did you graduate from? Like,
I,
stop
I saw some.
answering.
I saw something funny on that. I have a lot of people on Twitter that are in the cybersecurity industry, and somebody said they got a DM that says, "Hey, it's supposed to be like some hot girl. Hey, I think you're pretty cute." And it's like, "Oh, really? What did you find was cute?" Well, I just really like, your picture. Why don't you tell me, tell me a little bit about you? What's your dog's name? When's your birthday? And they were actually doing that phishing experiment, and they were posting screenshots from the direct message just on their Twitter feed, and we all just got a kick out of it because I
Oh
hadn't
my
seen one
gosh.
like that before. But it just piggyback on exactly what you said.
It's so crazy. So so recently, kind of how we developed this is there was a smaller mom and pop operation company recently that, the guy makes the product out of his garage. His He got a message, his Instagram got compromised. He worked really hard for years to build up. I don't even know how many
Yeah,
followers the account had, but they took it from him, right? Because he clicked on a link, he gave them access, not knowing what he was doing and thinking quickly in the morning. And now that account's gone, he has to start all the way over from zero and rebuild a following and his brand. And so, beside, like, let's start there. Like, what do we even need to be aware of as small business owners? Just being in the social media game, because how do you advertise without using social media these days? Like, the newspapers don't exist anymore, the yellow pages don't work, so you kind of have to be in that game. But how do we even protect ourselves?
right, exactly. And so one of the things that you need to be aware of, because this is, if you've been on social media, of course, long enough, you probably have gotten something like this via Facebook. I got a message from a friend of mine on Facebook that was like, "Hey, here, click a link, check this out."
Mm-hmm.
And it dawned on me, this is somebody I talk to all the time, but I don't talk to them via Facebook. They don't send me Facebook messages. They would text me, check the link out, and I would know it was from them. So I took that message that I got sent from his account. It was legitimately from his account from Facebook, and I said, "Hey man, did you send me this?" And he's like, "No, my account got hacked."
Mm-hmm.
So the first thing, when you're in there and you're engaging with other people in social media, and you get something random, and this is what I say: if you're not expecting it, then it's probably not legitimate. Make sure if you're suspicious of something, to take it to another format, take it to another communication method. Because if I had clicked that and locked my systems out, depending on what that link may have went to, it was worth me that extra 10 seconds to text them and say, "Was that you?" "No, my Facebook account," to stop. And so there has to be this thing of not clicking unconsciously when you're getting all this messages, to be in such a hurry. You're just clicking and you're clicking and you're clicking and all this stuff. A lot of the platforms, I know, I'll say Instagram in particular,
Mm-hmm.
have gotten a little bit better with a lot of the direct messages. If somebody is trying to do those catfish or social engineering we taught, where they're trying to trick you into doing some of those types of things, to give up that information, they're a little bit better with hiding those. They make you go extra steps to go see those hidden conversations. So if you go look at your DMs, you'll see the ones that are allowed, but there's also stuff that's in there that's blocked. And if you click those, you'll see a whole bunch of junk, and it's all junk. Because there's some friends of mine that I know that are well enough known that there's people that are going in there and creating fake accounts with them, and just like changing a letter after the name.
Yeah.
So it would be like Steve, let's say his name was Steve L, and they'll make it Steve L second L, something along that line. And they'll copy the entire profile.
Yeah.
I actually had this happen 2 weeks ago because I was trying to reach out to somebody else, and I get a follow back and I get a message, but the message back to me had nothing to do with that guy. But I recognized that he was a marketing person, and crypto is the biggest thing now. If you get
Yes.
anybody hitting you up, and they're like, hey, do you want to know about Ethereum? You want to know about Bitcoin? You want to learn how to invest? Delete it. And I delete it fast as you possibly can, because it's a scam. That's one of the biggest scams that are going out there now. And everybody is a crypto investor with that stuff. And so it's a lot of it when you're on social media, because you're doing those engagements, you want to, me and you connected via LinkedIn. That is how we spoke the very first time.
Yes.
I always, if I get a message from somebody like that, somebody like you, I'm going to say, I'm going to get another Kyle down the road, hits me up. I go validate, is this a real person?
Okay.
That is the first thing that I go do, not on a different medium. I go check out, hey, was the Floor Academy podcast, is that a real thing? Or somebody trying to trick me into giving me some stuff. That's just where I've trained myself over the years, having been in the industry. The hard part is translating that to other people, that they don't think of that secondhand.
Well, I think it's hard to, like, man, it just sucks to be that skeptical, right? Like, I can't believe anything I see anymore. Like, I would like to believe society is better than what's portrayed. And honestly, it is. If you go out in the real world and you interact with people, there's more good people than like what the news and media portray to you.
Sure.
But within that space, like it's you have to verify. And I don't blame you for checking it out. I would think the way I wrote my message appeared to be more legit than a bunch of stuff that, the scammy stuff you get. However, I understand. Like, you don't know me. I didn't know you. And so, yeah, man, go do your research. Well, and it only takes a few minutes.
Well, let me give you a story that happened to me about 2 months ago. I was subjected to a scam I live in the state of Virginia, from the Virginia Employment Commission. Somebody had gotten a hold of my information and had submitted it to the state of Virginia, filing unemployment, and were trying to get checks. They were trying to get money in my name. And the way that this started, it's not like I got something random. I get all of these letters in the mail, and they look official. They look official. And I'm going, all right, but are they official? I don't know, because I'm like, I didn't file this. So instead of me calling all the numbers on the forms, because this is where my level of skepticism is at this stage, I go look up what's the Virginia Employment Commission's website. Let me call them. And sure enough, that they've had a massive problem with fraudulent claims using people's legitimate information. I kid you not. It wasn't my current address, but they had an old address that was legitimate. And it didn't take much to file for that unemployment insurance claim. It was my name, it was my address, and that was it. Luckily, the state required a PIN card that was getting sent to me in the mail to finish it, because they've had so many issues with people scamming the system.
That's crazy.
That was 2 months ago.
But once again, like, I'm glad you're skeptical. I think that's great advice. Like, double check things we get, even letters, because you don't know what someone's sending out. So
here's another great story with this one. And this is one of those ones I wish I had a visual that I had a copy of it. But so I'm going to try to explain this as much as possible. You've seen those people got sometimes elaborate email signatures. I have one on mine. You've probably seen mine. It's got my picture on it. It's got like company logos on it. You got links for, phone number, website. Here's my podcast, The Business Samurai, all this type of stuff. Well, I was at another place last year. Somebody was really good and had copied that entire email signature. They made the the company had an I in it, like a lowercase I or a uppercase I. Okay. And they changed the I to an L, because when you type them out, they look exactly the same.
Yep. Registered
the domain name. They went, so normally this does not happen. So normally if you hover over a link and it's just junk, and you can see it's not, if you're going from like apple.com, it's going to come from XYZ123, blah, 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 blah. This one, no kidding, had the domain name registered with that I replaced as an L, and it looked identical. And they were emailing these people's clients and impersonating them, asking for stuff.
Impressive.
It was probably the best one I've ever seen. And you know what you can do about that? Nothing. There's no way to stop somebody else from some random third party from anywhere in the world doing that. They're short of, luckily, that other end client was diligent enough, because the request was weird. The request was out of the norm of who they usually spoke to from that email address, and that's what clued them off. that something was up. But it was
Interesting.
by far an extremely impressive phishing campaign, one of the best I've ever seen. Particularly when you're talking about the people they were impersonating was a 25-person company. That was the target. That was who they had targeted to copy.
Which I don't know if that's a good idea or a bad. At 25 people, I think you're small enough that you probably have good relationships with your clients, and the clients probably kind of know the people around. Now, had it been like 100, 200,000 person company, that might have worked a little better.
Yeah. I've seen some good ones from Apple, and I've seen some back in the day from like banks. You get Citibank, Chase Bank. A lot of those, if you see something that looks a little weird, they actually have reporting mechanisms that you can go and say, "Hey, I got this. I don't think this is legitimate," and then they'll take it up. That type of stuff.
Okay.
But the banks and those types of things are much, much better. I just ran a Facebook ad for something else that I was promoting, and Facebook is mad at me right now because the credit card company declined the payment to Facebook. This happened about 2 hours prior to recording this. I'm getting these texts. I'm getting angry emails from Facebook, and I'm getting angry texts from Capital One going, "Hey, is this you?" So there's a lot more diligence happening throughout the supply chain on a lot of those types of things.
Okay. So I obviously within the social media space, don't answer stupid questions. Verify that it's somebody you actually know. Find out if they're real. I know a lot of times people are just, especially on like Facebook, it's super easy. You can just go create another account with somebody's exact same name. Yep. You copy their profile picture, you upload it as your own. And, look, if you've had a conversation with somebody before and somebody else reaches out to you and starts having a conversation with you and there's no previous messages, come on, folks. Like, you didn't delete the message. There should be a chat history there. So pay attention a little bit. But I think just you got to be safe. Like, I think your skepticism is probably the best bet on it to keep small businesses protected and keep our accounts safe so that they're not getting into our advertising and they're not stealing company pages and they're not ruining our name.
And if you want the other, I mean, there's not like a magic bullet. That's the problem. I could sit there and give you every piece of software that was existing on the planet, and it wouldn't necessarily matter. It's the world's like greatest cat and mouse game. That next entry point, if somebody really wants to do it, is yet to be discovered because software, hardware, it's all made by people. That type of thing. The other thing to really protect this, and this is one of those easy tactics, but it causes you to do an extra step for all of your online accounts, is to turn on that multi-factor, that you may hear it referred to as that two-factor authentication. And if you're not familiar with what that is, if you've never turned that on before, it is where you may get a code sent to your phone that says you've logged into something, you've turned that on, and then Facebook or Gmail or whoever will send a text to your phone. Or you have a third-party app. There's several of them. Microsoft's got one, Duo, Authy. There's a bunch of them. And then I've actually got a few tools that I put together that Kyle can put out to anyone that's interested if you're not familiar with any of this stuff. And you can go register those apps from your phone, and it will auto-generate a code every 30 seconds or 60 seconds, depending on the company that's involved. So if you go log in, it's going to say, "Hey, what's the code?" Go to your app. What's the code? And then you just enter the code so it verifies you. I had this happen to me. I use Microsoft Office for my stuff. I don't use Gmail a ton. And at around Christmas time, 3 days in a row last year, somebody was trying to break into my email system. And the way that I know somebody was trying to break into my email system and had gotten my password somehow and I needed to go change it, was I kept getting prompted from my phone that somebody is logging in. Somebody is logging into the account there, and they're wanting the code or for me to hit the button that says approve. And I went, not today. And it does. I had somebody, I mentioned it earlier because he was frustrated with it. He deals with a multi-9-figure trust fund, and he wanted me, he was like, "I want to turn this multi-factor authentication off." I'm like, "There's no way I'm allowing you to turn that off."
No.
Do you know what you deal with? The lawyers you deal with, the banks that you deal? Absolutely not, because we've had people try to get into that account before with what you're doing. That extra 5 seconds is worth.
It's such an annoyance. Yes. It really I have it turned on a lot of things. I find it really annoying.
Yep.
However, it makes sense. It does protect you, because I've had people reach out. Like, I'll randomly get requests for, like, AT&T will send me a request and be like, hey, you need this code. I'm like, that's funny. And I've been on the phone with people. Like, I like having fun with the scammers because I have nothing better to do while I'm installing floors. And so I'll take those phone calls, and I try and I figure the longer I keep them on the phone, the less chance they have to get like a little old lady at home. And so, oh, hey, we're with AT&T, da, da, da. And like, we need to do this, that, and other. Hey, it's going to send you a code. We need that code. And I'm like, uh-huh. Okay, I guess we're done now, because I'm not going to give. If anybody's asking for the code, don't give it to them. It's seriously, it's for you to put into your computer, not to give out to other people. So I think that's some really great advice, that yes, it's an annoyance, but that extra little step can go. It's there for a reason, and it will protect you, unless they get into your email or somehow spoof your phone number and start stealing your text messages, which would require them to actually get your phone.
See, now you're thinking like me. I've told people, I said, how far down the risk rabbit hole do you want to go? Now you're turning into
I'm dorky enough to have a basic understanding of other things that can be done, but yeah, we're not going to keep going and going and going. But can they do it? Sure. I mean, I guess they could, if somebody like a frenemy of yours like gets a hold of your phone and wants to install some keylogger on it and have it send emails out every day, like, yeah, they can start getting information out of you, but that's a lot.
So you said something that triggered something. For anybody listening, Kyle and I have reported a podcast for my show, and it's not released. Well, depending, I don't know when it's going to be released when you're hearing this.
This will come out end of September. So what you're going to be? We're mid-October, I believe.
You're mid October. But I wanted to touch on something, because this gives me, I want a little bit of feedback, and I'm not trying to wrestle control of your show away from you. I promise. But it was something you mentioned on ours about TikTok.
Mm-hmm.
And the keylogger thing is actually what triggered me. That I wasn't thinking about till you said that, because there's been some rumors in the cybersecurity field that TikTok in and of itself has a keylogger in the application. But out of all the social media apps out there, when you're talking about trying to spread the word, your message, whatever you are, it clearly is probably number one in blowing up and being visible. Mm-hmm. So for you as a business owner and working with others, this helps me. Where do you view that trade-off? If somebody like me comes to you and says, hey, and I don't use it, I don't even have it installed, that this thing, we talked about privacy of the apps from the other ones, and then TikTok may be an ocean of apps, as well as tracking every single keystroke on your phone. How does that change your mindset of, should I use TikTok, which may blow up my business, or I'm going to give everything away?
So I don't have TikTok. I haven't set one up. I've thought about it. I just haven't done it. I barely use my Instagram. Like, I'm trying to get better at just that. For me, honestly, I look at it as TikTok's catching on. It's becoming more popular with an older age crowd, but I still find it's very much teens, young 20s, right? Like, that's the core audience. Well, for what I do, they're not really my audience. Like, I'm late 30s, early 40s. That's when you're really starting to have like wealth and money and can afford a floor. So I don't see it as a good use of time to advertise. Now, granted, I have lots of friends in this space. They love using TikTok. Can it help you get the kids interested in a trade? Yes. Could it help you get the kid saying like, oh, I heard my mom talking about this, let me go show it to her? Yeah, I think there's probably some things to it. I'm super skeptical of the just platform, because it's based out of China. Right. So we don't have good relations with them. And, I'm not really super keen on the idea of it. Now, where that'll be in 5 years, we'll see. Once again, I started the show off saying like, we just constantly continue to give up more and more. So at some point, maybe that giving up that skepticism and accepting it will be worth it to me. But as of now, no, I'm not super keen on the platform.
No, and that's honestly, that's good to hear. It is something that has been some of the guys that I speak to that get a lot into breaking apart codes and things of that nature
Mm-hmm.
that try to decipher what these things type of do. Some of those apps can be difficult for them to do that. But I do know, as far as kind of that risk, how much privacy you're getting up, what are for what you're getting in return to being on that particular app. They said, imagine the other ones being a trickle as far as how much is taken, and TikTok in and of itself essentially being the ocean of data, because they're just not sure that it's not tracking every single click of the button that you do on your phone at all times.
Yeah. Scary thought.
Yes, it is. And and for most people, their phones are with them on their person almost 24/7.
Correct. And that's another thing that's come up, right? So Apple now wants to block a lot of the information that's allowed to go
Yep.
out. But your phone is not only tracking you where you're at location wise, it's tracking what you say. And so now you can get advertising based on comments you say, and it's all of it. Like everything has cookies installed. And so I went and I can be interested in a piece of audio equipment for the podcast and go look at one microphone, and I will see microphone ads for the next 8 weeks. And it doesn't matter if I've looked at like another microphone or not, right? I can look at one thing. When I was looking for a truck 2 years ago, like all my ads became truck ads for months and months. And I was just like, I bought the truck. Like, I'm done. Can we show me something else that's relevant because I bought the truck? So
Yeah.
it's scary. Like, you're just out using the stuff, trying to live your daily life, and you're just inundated with garbage and trying to filter through it. And so are there any recommendations you have for just as users of technology or as business owners, how can we protect ourselves from being inundated with the garbage and not having to accept all of these things that track us? Like, how can we limit that?
Unfortunately, there's not a really good way to do that now, because all of that stuff, when you're talking about those platforms that are free, the saying that is true, if something is free, that means you're the product. It's absolutely the case. They're building all of these gigantic data warehouses to continue to aggregate all of the data and store all of this stuff up that you do. So by using and stepping on any platform, using these sites, particularly when things are completely ad based, that you knowingly are going in there and you're giving up some of that type of stuff. I had a conversation with a friend of mine actually earlier today. He talked about getting one of those electronic, the floor like robots, not like the Roombas. It was a different brand, something else I had seen.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Roomba in and of itself actually just got bought up by Amazon. This happened a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
Yeah. So think about this for a minute, and don't get me wrong. As being as skeptical as I am, I do have Alexis. I do use Alexis because it's very easy for me to add something to the shopping list to go to the grocery store. I do like that.
Yeah. I'm with you.
Things of that nature. But think about, now they have security systems and doorbells and cameras, web cameras and stuff like that. Now they're going to own iRobot, which has all the Roombas that have LiDAR, that it can actually do spatial detection of interior spaces of your home, which is how most the new ones particularly maneuver around.
Mm-hmm.
So now you've got one gigantic megacorp that knows when and not you're home, probably everything that you're ever saying, of course, whatever you're doing online, and can actually do the layout of furniture in your house at this stage and probably do it in 3-dimensional stuff. I mean, there's a level of acceptance to this, and there's not really, if you're willing to go use those devices, you have to be willing to go, this is a likelihood that this is occurring, that they're aggregating this type of stuff for you to, and whatever they're going to do with it down the road, you've got no clue, which is one of those things. If have you heard the term Web3? Web3 is talking about going back to a little bit more of a decentralized thing where you get to have a little bit more ownership of your data. It's kind of like some of the technology that we talked about crypto earlier, and blockchain technology. It's a kind of a different way where you can kind of start breaking that apart. If that becomes adopted, hopefully that will allow people to start wrestling some control back of their online identities and online information.
No, I think that'd be great. Like I said at the beginning, right? Like, even me, like in 40 years, the amount of things that have changed is insane. Where, like, You used to be like, oh, like who's knocking at my door, right? Like, let me peek out the peek hole. And now we're just like out in the world saying, hey, look, here I am. Here's all my information. And it's amazing just how much we put out in the world versus how much we used to keep to ourselves and like only a little local community would know.
I heard this last night, and I do not know who this person is. I was listening to a totally different podcast, and this is the first time I've ever heard this story. And it was actually kind of awesome and it was weird. And then everybody said it was kind of cool afterwards. Somebody had ran basically like a high dollar get together. These were all like multimillionaire business owners got together for like a weekend, just kind of hanging out. Nobody knew each other. Like there was like one person that was like the hub that knew everybody and said, let's just all get together for a weekend. Well, this random guy, they invited this random guy, and nobody knew who he was. Nobody knew who his name was. And somebody said, "Hey, what do you do?" He goes, "I'm anonymous for the weekend." And they're like, "What?" He goes, "I'm anonymous. I'm not telling you my name. I'm not telling you what I do. None of this stuff." And they're like, "Well, your wife knows your name and stuff." And they go, "Yeah." And and I'm sitting there, I'm listening to this, and trust me, I think I had the same look you've got on your face, like see on the screen now, like what? That this guy was trying to be anonymous in real life. And they're like, well, how about the friends you know? None of them know my name. He goes, I run a very high level, multi-million-dollar thing. Very few people know who I actually am if they meet me in person. I don't introduce myself that way. He went by his online Twitter handle. That was how everybody introduced him that. And that was the first time I'd ever heard that story. And I'm like, well, there's the kind of the swing to the exact opposite. Just don't tell anybody anything. Mm-hmm. It was awesome. It was on the My First Millionaire podcast. I was hearing this last night from their get together. I guess they just had. It was a crazy story. He went by the name Commodore or something like that, and that's how everybody addressed him. That was his Twitter handle.
Wow. I mean, I can't blame somebody, especially if you're like high profile, right? Like the lower you can maintain, the better. I got to interrupt us, and then I want to take this in a little bit of a different direction, but still in the same vein.
Cool.
Hey, listeners, whether you're an installer, retailer, distributor, or serve in another capacity within our industry, attending trade shows is a solid resource to expand your knowledge and networking base. You can also learn about the newest and industry-leading products coming to market. The International Surfaces event is returning to Las Vegas January 31st through February 2nd, 2023, so mark your calendars now. Floor Academy podcast listeners will have exclusive registration offers coming soon. Stay up to date with the International Surfaces event page on Facebook. Johns Manville manufactures a range of innovative building materials, including products for the flooring industry. From GoBoard to Evolith, JM products are not often visible, but they provide technical, environmental, and economic advantages to the essential items you are installing every day. GoBoard is an ultra-lightweight, waterproof backer board, and Evolith products are fiberglass or polyester non-woven components used in the making of carpet tiles, LVT, and resilient flooring. All right, John. So what I want to do is I want to talk about, like, a lot of people will use like QuickBooks Online or Square. What's another one? I can't think of another one, the other big one that a lot of guys and gals use. But essentially, we're invoicing online. And we're able to take the credit card and stuff. Now, I know the credit card information is safe because that's stored. Well, maybe it's not, but it's at least stored on another server. But there is a lot of information that gets put out. Like I know on my laptop, I have W-9 scanned into it. I know in my email, there's probably emails with social security numbers and stuff going back and forth about some things. I have people's addresses with community gate codes in there. So how aware do we need to be of our computers, but then also how aware do we need to be with like cloud-based applications and how we're doing business? Like how can we kind of protect ourselves in that space?
Yeah, the first thing, I'm going to go back to something we had said earlier with the cloud-based things first, because that's the easier one. Okay. Most of those, it's good for you to have those in there because, of course, they're maintaining the infrastructure. So the biggest thing that you can do to protect yourself is to prevent people to get access to those accounts in your name. So we mentioned the multi-factor authentication, having that extra little trigger in there to do that. Because take a company like Stripe or Square or PayPal or whoever it is that you may use for credit card processing. They actually have guidelines that they have to follow. It's called PCI. So they have things that are actually regulations to follow when it comes to how they store and transmit credit card information, things of that nature, if they're storing it. QuickBooks Online, they probably have something similar to that. I can't speak to theirs exactly if there's a framework, but dealing with them with accounting data, I think they've got their, they run payroll and things of that nature. My guess is that they have something, a framework. It may even be PCI as well. They're protecting in there. So the best thing that you can do is, again, add that extra layer of protection with that multi-factor authentication in there to prevent people from getting access to the account, because there's nothing else for you to do. You're not running. That's the cool thing. You don't have to worry about patching QuickBooks Online. You don't have to worry about, they're doing all that stuff behind the scenes, or they better be doing that stuff behind the scenes, and keeping their stuff up to date. Now, when it comes to your computer, the one thing to look at is, should you actually even be storing that information on your computer to start with? I'd almost recommend something like a Dropbox or a Google Drive and add some encryption to there that's baked into those systems, for two reasons. One, it's not on your computer that, if you got a hard drive crash or something along those lines, where you've got something that's not necessarily a cyber risk, but it just may be, you've got, you're a solo entrepreneur, you got a couple of people or something like that, or hopefully you're not letting your kids or something like that also have access to your work computer to go in there and do who knows what to it that may open things up. But put it in a separate drive to stop those things from being incremented. But if you don't use something like Dropbox, to make sure that those folders are encrypted. And in Windows, it's usually pretty easy. There's some devices built into there, or there's some third-party tools that you can go look at for it to do, just encrypt that data in there. So let's say somebody stole your laptop. You're in a congested area, doing a flooring job. You happen to leave your truck unlocked by accident. Yep. Somebody walks by. Make sure your computer has passwords on it. I still know people that don't have passwords. I saw a scary stat the other day that said 1 in 5 small businesses don't even run antivirus on their computer. Do some of those basic things. Make sure your computer stays up to date with patches, that you're not using out of date software on the local devices. So if you're still rocking a Windows 7 computer, you need to at least go get to Windows 10. They don't support it anymore. So to keep those devices up to date, because I said, you are not necessarily going to be a target. You're going to be more of a crime of opportunity. There's somebody either, if they're doing something digitally, let's say there's like a hacking thing, somebody is sitting there running these port scanners and it's just random, and they happen to come across yours because you're still running Windows 95 that hasn't been patched in 20 years.
I wish.
It's much simpler time. But those aren't supported anymore. So the amount of stuff that can be broken into, it's a random thing. And then they go, oh, look, this address comes up and I can go do all these fun things in there or lock you out.
Yes.
Or try to do some social engineering. So very simple. If you see your computer telling you to do Windows Update, do your Windows Update. Do your Apple updates. Do your Apple had that big vulnerability, what was that, 3 or 4 weeks ago? And I mean, it was such a big vulnerability that it made national news that if you run an iPhone, you need to go patch this today, because it could have allowed third-party access to your entire thing. So patching is a big deal. And again, using a utility to back up your data, because one of the things that I say when it comes to cyber, when you're trying to protect yourself, again, think of, you got that risk mindset. That, let's say you got your iPhone and you go, man, the iPhone cost me $700, but how much is the data worth on there? How much is all that client data worth?
Yeah.
How much is your reputation worth? If you said, hey, all my files got locked out, or somebody stole them and they're holding them for ransom from me, and they have access to your stuff, and you've got to go tell your clients that. It's worth, the $50 a year for a little backup solution and your antivirus and things of that nature to just prevent those things from happening. Because it's a situation, it's kind of like going to the doctor. The doctor's like, preventative is way better to deal with than post.
Yes, let's be proactive instead of reactive. So
Exactly.
one thing I know I did was I just needed more storage, so I have
Mhm.
a giant network attached storage device off to my side here that I can now back everything up on. But here's where I know I'm failing, and let me know what I actually need. Right, so I have stuff locally on my hard drive on my laptop. I have everything backing up, and I have files that are backed up not only in the laptop backup, but I just back them up on there in general.
Mhm.
However, both of those are in my house. So if there's a fire, I got nothing. So my understanding is that I need to go buy some like offsite third party backup, or I need to create a backup that I can transfer and have at another location, and then I'm technically secure. But is there another step in there, or do I need more backups than what I'm thinking?
No, that's probably secure. And one of the things you got to look at too, because everybody always talks about, oh my, they're hearing you say all this stuff. They're like, oh my God, how much money is this going to cost me? And then you got to go start prioritizing it. You got to start prioritizing. Well, how much data is really the most important stuff that I
Mm-hmm.
really do I need to? What should be the stuff that I get out of sight? Using a program like Carbonite that can blow it up into their secure cloud. If my box here, let's say you had a fire in your house. Let's not even talk cyber. Let's say you had a fire in your house.
Yeah.
Something along that line. That you have that out there. To control the cost with that, you start prioritizing what is the most important thing, because you got people. I take my parents for instance. They feel like they've got to save every freaking digital picture that they've taken since the invention of smartphones, and it's who knows how many gigs and gigs and gigs of data that they've never seen before. Is that something that you'd want the whole thing backed up? Maybe not. If budget wasn't an issue,
Okay.
maybe not. But I use something for mine. I've got backup, but I use something again because I use a Microsoft product. It's their OneDrive system. It just syncs to their cloud, and it allows me to access the files that I need to from any device that I happen to be on simultaneously, and keeping version control in there. So I can go back if I screw something up, accidentally delete it. I can go recover that out of the system, and it's just part of the Microsoft Office platform, and it's like a terabyte of data. Now, if you're ripping movies and stuff like that, you're not going to do that with it. But again, let's say you're using the desktop version of QuickBooks. I use the desktop version of QuickBooks because I hate the online version. I just don't like the workflow of it.
Yeah.
I've been using the desktop version for like 10 years. I use that to be able to keep multiple versions of the file and keep it off-site in their secured system, because they allow encryption and they're maintaining that type of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And what's it cost me? $100 a year for something like that. I think it's around
what's peace of mind worth, right? Like I know we're looking at like, okay, well, I got to invest in, a $500 hard drive, and then I got to invest in like $500 a year to have offsite backup. But honestly, if you lose your business information, what's that time and effort really worth? Because I had you were talking about your parents and having digital pictures. Hard drive crashed on me that had pictures of my kids growing up, because who prints pictures anymore, right? Everything's digital. I can look at it whenever.
My wife.
I lost like 2 years of my life in pictures because that hard drive was done at toast. Can't get it back. It's gone permanently. And that's one of the reasons why I bought the drive I have now, because it's running so that there's backup amongst the drives. So like one drive can fail out of 4 and I can put a new one in, and everything's hunky dory. It's not just counting on one thing to always work. And so what's my business worth? What if somebody gets, I've heard of people getting their computers hijacked, right? Like you open the link and the person locks you out of your own computer and they want $5,000 and give it to me.
Yep.
Well, if I got a backup, you can have it, dude. I'll just shut this one down, throw it in the trash, go buy a new laptop, upload everything to the new laptop, and I'm good to go, right? So how long is a business down for, and what's that going to cost you because you can't get access to your files? So $1,000 a year sounds, well, it's not even $1,000 a year. It's $500 for the hard drive once and $500 a year for the other service, and that's really not that much to add to your bottom line, in my opinion.
Well, and if you go to my website, barkerleadership.com, I actually have a risk calculator that you can actually go into the page. There's no sign up. You don't have to put an email in or none of that stuff. You can scroll down to it and say, how many employees do I have? How much data do I have? How much does it cost to run the business per hour? How much does it cost to run, how much revenue does the business drive? And you can actually put that dollar amount to there. So you can sit there and go, hey, if I'm down for 12 hours, depending on your business, that's going to cost me $1,000. So then you can kind of go, because everybody has a different risk profile. That's what I say.
Yeah.
You've got different risk mindset. There's no one size fits all. So you go, well, if I think that I can get back up, it's only going to cost me $1,000. I'm not going to spend that much money on it. You're not going to listen to somebody that's going to pitch you, a $10,000 solution for $1,000 problem. You're just not.
Yes.
But like you said, and this is the reason, again, I really like what you're doing with helping you building up those business operations. These are the type of performance numbers you need to know. You need to know these in your business anyway. How much does it cost to operate your business? If you experience an interruption, how much revenue is also lost? Not just what, you may have to stop working, but how much revenue is lost because you can't go get new business because you're fighting this type of stuff. That all compounds.
Correct.
Then go figure out the formula and the investment that you feel comfortable with for that peace of mind.
Hard drives are cheap, folks. Backup services can be fairly cheap. Like John was saying earlier, you don't have to back up everything. I have terabytes of video that I've shot. And to me, it's very important. I want to back it up. Just, do I need it for the business? No, but I would like to hold on to it. It means something to me. So for me to back up a bunch of information can get very expensive because I need a ton of space offsite. For most people, if you're just running QuickBooks and using a cheap $300 laptop to do basic invoicing and things, you could get away with a little 2-drive system for a couple $100 with some smaller hard drives, and maybe $100, $200 a year in offsite backup, and you're good to go, right? You're $500 in for a one-time investment, and then a couple $100 a year. You're not going to add a lot to your bottom line. It's not going to affect it. But once again, that peace of mind of knowing you're protected, knowing that there's not going to be downtime if something happens, you can get right back and up and running within a few hours as opposed to days or weeks.
Ever.
Okay. That's a scary thought.
No, actually, the stat that I've seen recently, I double checked. I haven't looked at the stats probably since the beginning of the year. Most small businesses that have some sort of cyber incident with data loss go out of business within 6 months.
Ouch.
Yes, because there is no guarantee that you pay the ransom or you have some sort of equipment failure or something or even just insider threat. Let's say you've got a worker that's working with you and steals your stuff out of your truck because he got ticked off at you one day. There's no guarantee you're getting any of that back. And so could you, without any of those protections in place, recover? Because another thing, I want to piggyback something that I've seen recently that people are putting their hopes and dreams into, and that is cybersecurity insurance. Because I imagine you within the flooring industry and the people within your audience, you carry some sort of business insurance. You've
Correct.
got something there. So cyber insurance risk policies are something that last I had seen had been relatively inexpensive. And people go, I got cyber insurance policy, I'm good to go. Well, again, cyber insurance policy is after the fact. You may have access, you may get a little bit of money out of it. They're getting smarter with saying, are you actually doing some baseline configurations before we just hand you a check? But it's still, it's trying to do a remediation after the fact. It's trying to fix the problem that may or may not occur. You still could be out of business even with having that, but people are using that without best practices to try to get peace of mind. I've seen it. I've talked to the cyber insurance guys that actually sell those policies, and there's still sometimes will even say that line. To me, that's crazy. You still want to be preventative.
Well, always, right? Once again, we were talking about proactive, right? Let's get in front of the problem and recognize it.
Yep.
And attack it before it's actually a problem. That's why we talk about systems and processes in different parts of the business here every week, is that I would hate for someone that wants to actually scale a large business to get to 100 employees and then say, all right, now I've got a company. Like, let's start putting systems and processes in place. You can make money by accident for a very long time and be very disorganized and still be profitable and make money. But at pivoting 100-person company and getting everybody on board with this new idea and way of doing things is going to be way, way harder than 5 people or 2 people or just you. And then if it's just you and you bring somebody in, look, man, this is how we stay organized. This is how we do it. This is all the systems that I've built. If we have an invoice, it goes through the system this way. This is how we install a floor. Like, everything has a reason and something behind it. Then you have 2 people, 3 people, 5 people, 10 people. The things need to adapt as you grow. Yes, but there was already a plan in place to make it easier. That company with 100 people could be stuck dead in the water for a year or two, just trying to fix everything and get it moving forward again. So could they, let's say there are 100 people and they're doing 100 million a year. Well, they're going to be stuck at 100 million a year for a year or two, in my opinion. Whereas the little company that just has to make tweaks here and there as they scale, the growth will be exponential as they continue to move through and invest back in themselves and go. So the being proactive and recognizing problems and finding the solutions up front matters way more. Not that I think everybody ends up in a reactive state at some point. Like, you don't see things. Sometimes we have our blinders on. Sometimes we get caught up in a moment or trying to do something that we neglect another area. But I think that's small business. Like, you're going to be reactive to something, but let's not be reactive to things that are going to cost us our identity, our clients' identities, or subcontractors' identities, or livelihoods. Like, this is probably more serious than what I think most people in the flooring industry would think it is. It's something, I install floors. What's my laptop matter? What's me being online matter? There's more going on and more information involved than what you're probably actually thinking about. So John has a lot of great advice here about how to protect ourselves and make sure that we're not being overexposed and that we are keeping information safe. And so I just go do the little things to protect yourself. It's not hard. It's very easy. So, John, do you have any closing thoughts? Or is there anything that we didn't hit on that you're like, this is a point I have to make?
No, I would say I've got one quick story about dealing with somebody that had it was somewhere between a 5 and 8 person company. Mm-hmm. The other flip side to people that do some of this stuff that I get a little concerned with, when cybersecurity should be right sized. The security, the risk mindset, we said everybody's got a different risk profile. Everybody has you've got your tolerances to what you do, as long as you understand the base numbers of what you're trying to protect. And I had somebody reach out to me a couple of years ago, don't know who they were, through LinkedIn, and they said, hey, we're like a 7-person company, and they did landscaping, if I recall correctly. And somebody was advising them, and they were coming in there with some astronomical solution set that was going to be like $40,000 or $50,000, maybe even more than that. I can't remember the exact number.
Yeah, no.
Because it was so this is the thing. There's a problem where tech people sometimes don't speak business, and business people a lot of times don't even want to understand the technical side of it. Yeah. But whoever was advising them had this big checklist, because there's all kinds of cybersecurity checklists out there and frameworks, and some of them are small, some of them are big. And they said they were having to comply with all of this stuff that just didn't matter in their business. So be cautious of somebody. This is the reason why I said go back and make sure you know what you need to protect, prioritize it. And if you're trying to go and seek other advice, don't let somebody oversell you. There's no turnkey solution. There's a couple of check boxes. We've hit them here. Multi-factor authentication, antivirus, backup solutions, things of that nature. Make sure you have additional storage. But don't let somebody sell you on something that's 80% of it you're never going to use. It's going to and may price you out because the expense is too big, because it's not tailored to what you're trying to accomplish, what your mission is. So be cautious of that. And the kicker with that story was that person that was advising them found out who I was, called me. I was in a restaurant. We had just finished a lunch meeting, and luckily I had the whole second floor to ourselves. The other guy had just left, and starts yelling at me on the phone that I was putting them at risk. And I said, you're going to put them at risk. I said, you're going to put them out of business. There is a balance.
Yeah. Yeah.
So just be cautious of there's a balance in there that everybody should take. You don't put your head in the sand, and don't go nuts on the other opposite end either.
Yes. No, I think it's good. And, it kind of goes back to when you're dealing with anybody in this space that you're consulting or contracting with. Look, we know people get other bids in our line of work, folks. I'm sure John has people getting other bids too. Like, you got to be able to build a relationship with the person you're working with and assess the apples, the oranges, and the pears, because none of the bids are going to come back equivalent, right? But we need to get somewhat educated. So as he says, like, there's going to be a solution, but we don't need to go over the top for us, but we don't want to be underprotected as well. And just because it's the middle bid doesn't mean it's the right bid. The one that's slightly more expensive might be the better fit. But get educated enough to understand what you're looking at and who you're working with, and figure out how you can protect yourself. I think that's great advice. Where can people find you? How do they, if they want to dig into the Business Samurai podcast, where can they find that? If they want to look into getting IT things looked at, how do they find you? Get your plugs in.
Sounds good. No, I appreciate it. Again, Kyle, this has been fun. I had fun having the conversation today. So I run the Business Samurai podcast.thebusinesssamurai.com. It's on all of the major platforms. I enjoy speaking to other business leaders or people that do very interesting things for their work and how that functions, because I do like the operational side of that. So please feel to check that out. And I'm on all the social media platforms. If you're curious about using any, like the risk calculator, it's at barkerleadership.com. It's there for you so you can understand your numbers. I want you to understand your numbers so you can understand exactly where your risk profile should fit you.
Okay. And you got a free PDF for the listeners there's a link in the Facebook video description. I'll get it in the show notes, folks, that we're looking at cyber risks management strategies.
Yeah, there's some, I threw together a list of some tools that you can use that are related to antivirus, backup, multi-factor authentication, everything that we touched on in the show. I've got a couple of tools in there. And then I have about a 15 or 20 minute video where I walk through why it's important and some of the things. It kind of reiterates a lot that we actually spoke to today.
Awesome. I appreciate it. Thanks for putting that together. Like I said, in the show notes, you can find that, or if you're in the Facebook group, you can look at the video description. It's in there. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in and listening. You can go over to flooracademypod.com, check out the files section. I've got some stuff over there on trying to figure out your numbers so you can be profitable. You can do job costing. You can track your equipment for your insurance company, because, if your stuff gets stolen or whatnot, they're going to hate you when you provide them with a list of every piece of equipment, how much it cost you, the receipt that went with it, and the serial number. So you're going to be really happy. They're going to be really upset that your numbers to a T on what needs to be replaced. Check out the shop. I made a new design recently, so you can go get your profit is not a dirty word hoodie or t-shirt, because it's not, and you should be making it. And go check us out over on YouTube, because I really want to grow that platform. Go subscribe for me. I need 1,000 subscribers, folks. I don't even think I have 100 yet. Go over there, click the subscribe button, help me out. And if you like the show, go over to patreon.com/flooracademy. Sign up. Even $5 a month goes a long way in helping the content to continue to be produced. So that's it for us this week. Thank you, John, for coming on, spending time with us, and letting us know about things that probably are generally neglected, at least I would think, with a lot of small business owners, but especially contractors. We're very artisan oriented, and so some of this stuff will just right over our heads. So thank you for your time. I appreciate it. And everybody, we will see you next week.